Hey, welcome everybody to this week's installment of GSB TV. My name is Ed Fox and I'm here joined by Jay Moore. Today we're going to be talking about making the most of your email marketing. So Jay, let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Sure, yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about what email marketing is and why we do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, email marketing is just that. It's reaching out to your prospects and customers via email using some kind of email service, or in a very basic case, it could be using individual emails, although typically what we're going to be talking about today is more like, not to use the term mass emailing, but sending out emails to a list of people.
Wonderful. So how exactly do I get started?
Yeah, well, the reasons you want to do this are, it's a great way to keep in touch with your customers, a great way to keep in touch with prospects, maybe that you haven't actually done business with. So what you want to do to get started, it's very simple. What I would recommend is choosing an email marketing service. There are a variety of options out there on the market. We won't mention any specific names here, but needless to say, if you Google email marketing service, you'll find a variety of options. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. Most of them, your price is going to vary based on how many subscribers you have. So if you're just starting out and you have a list of 100 or 200 or maybe even less than that, that's okay. And that means you're probably going to be paying less for your email marketing, or maybe nothing at all to get started.
So I'm sure everybody's wondering, how do I build or grow my list?
Right. Yeah, well, that's a great question. Well, if you've never done email marketing before, you might think, who am I going to email? Well, one way you can start, certainly if you're a business owner and you've been in business for any amount of time, there's a good chance nowadays that you may have collected some emails along the way, even unintentionally. You might have come across some things in dealing with customers. So that can be a place to start. It's usually a good idea to make sure you have the permission of people whose email addresses you have to email them. So if you find old emails that maybe are past customers and they didn't actually opt in to receive your emails, you can always send them a reminder or say, hey, we have your email address, we'd like to start sending you email, and making sure. But basically building a list can be as simple as creating a sign-up form on your website. I know that's something that you can speak to a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Most email marketing services they'll provide you with the ability to create a form that you can then embed on your website. So you don't have to be a web developer, a web designer. Mm-hmm. You go on, fill out some information, design the form within their editor, and it'll spit out the code. Now you can go and take that and embed it on your website, but most of them, to make it even easier, they'll actually provide you with a web page in which that form resides. So all you really have to do is create a link and embed it in an email, or put it on your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you've got your email service chosen, you're starting to build your list, you've created a sign-up form, you've put it on your website, look for ways to collect email addresses as you're doing business in the course of your business. Depending on what kind of business you're operating, that's going to look different for different businesses. If you're an e-commerce or a brick and mortar store and you're doing retail business, chances are every time you have an order that's fulfilled, there's going to be some kind of email address that's going to be going along with that, either as a customer confirmation or whatever it may be. Typically what you'll see is giving your customer an option to say, yes, I'd like to receive newsletters and updates from you, in the future. You always want to have an opt-in list. It's very important that you're not scraping email addresses and emailing people against their will, because that's actually a violation of federal law. There's a piece of legislation called the CAN-SPAM Act, and it does regulate against those things. So you want to make sure you're being compliant. Another thing you can do, the classic business card in the fishbowl is a good way to do that. You see that at restaurants all the time. Obviously, again, make sure people know that you're going to be using their email to notify them about if they've won, and also other offers. But giveaways and promotions can be a great way to build your email list, give people something of value or a reason to sign up for your list, and you'll be growing your list in no time.
Yeah, those are some really, really great points. And one thing to note, before you start your campaign, you really have to think about the overall objective. Mm-hmm. And that's going to allow you to design your campaign around that objective in order to achieve your goal. So Jay, can you tell us a little bit about some of these objectives?
Sure, absolutely. So to Ed's point, when you're setting out to send an email campaign, we're going to call it a campaign. Typically that's going to be an individual email, or it might be a series of emails that are all linked together in some way, and we're going to consider that one campaign. You have to start with the end in mind. You have to have an objective. So a few different kinds of objectives that you might commonly run into in doing email marketing for small business. It might be education. This would be a good example of if you do some kind of weekly newsletter or monthly newsletter, or it could be a daily newsletter, depending on, if you're doing something where the field and the offerings and things are constantly changing, that might be something where you're sending out a daily email, but it's all going to be centered around, giving your prospect content and education. So that would be one. E-commerce is another. If you're doing some kind of e-commerce business or brick and mortar retail and using email to communicate to your customers, it might be deals, sales, product highlights. This week we're featuring, our brand new gadget, whatever it may be. And then a third thing that you see very commonly in email marketing for small businesses is event marketing. So maybe you're hosting some kind of webcast or informational webinar where you're going to be educating your prospects and clients, or pitching them on a new idea, or maybe you're hosting an open house, or you're hosting a special community event, and you want to drive people to register for that or sign up for that. Really, with all of these, though, what I'll tie in with this, with all three of these, one thing that they do have in common is ultimately you're going to have some kind of call to action. You want to always think about, what is my call to action when I'm sending an email out? And the call to action may be buy now. The call to action may be register or reserve your seat. The call to action might just be read this article. It might just be get some more information about X topic and use it to go about your day and be a little more knowledgeable about whatever we're trying to educate you on.
Great. So I've spent all this time to build a list, determine my objectives, create emails. Are there any best practices before hitting the send button or the start button, or even after that, is there anything ongoing that I should be doing?
Yes. Yes to both of those questions. Let's take them one at a time. So first of all, we're getting ready to send our campaign. I can't stress this enough, as someone who has been an email marketer for a number of years, and someone who has made these mistakes firsthand, and I can speak from personal experience. Proofread your emails. Also, send a test email. Almost every email marketing service, I would probably say every email marketing service out there, gives you the ability and the option to send yourself a test email, not only to check for errors, make sure all of your links are working. If you're linking to anything, that's crucial. You have to be able to send your recipients to where you're trying to send them to. If you're giving them broken links, that's just going to be a bad experience for everyone. So check for errors, check that all your links are working, and check how your message shows up in an inbox, because different email clients display messages differently. Outlook displays messages differently from Gmail, displays messages differently from Yahoo or Hotmail or whatever other email client your customers may be using. So check and see. Some email services will actually show you inbox previews, and you can actually see what they'll look like in different ones. Cool. Some you might just even consider setting up a Yahoo account, setting up a Gmail account, setting up an Outlook account, so you can test to all three and see what they're going to look like. So proofread, send a test, make sure your links are working, and make sure that your email is going to be displaying and formatting properly when you send it. And then to your second point, we talk about, so now we've sent our campaign. There's different things we can do. We can do an A/B test. Most services will allow you to do that. And what an A/B test is essentially taking your list and splitting it into two sections, A and B, obviously, and you're going to test a variable. It could be subject line, it could be the content of your email, it could be the time of day that you send your email, and that's going to be something that's going to let you see how different variables affect the overall performance of your email. And finally, when you get done sending, you have to check your stats. You've got to know the numbers. You've got to, you can't make adjustments unless you know where you're starting, where you're coming from, and where you're trying to get to. So track the opens, how many people open your email, track clicks, how many people clicked on your content, track any unsubscribes. If you get a lot of people unsubscribing, you are probably doing something wrong. You're giving them either something they didn't sign up for, which means go back to step one and make sure you have an opt-in email list, or you're giving them content that's not relevant to what they're looking for from you, which means you may need to adjust your messaging. And then basically from there, you can use that information to improve your email marketing and send better campaigns in the future.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you very much for joining us this week and making the most of your email marketing. If you have any questions about any of this, always feel free to reach out to the Go Small Biz Consultants. That's what they're there for. Thanks.